Hi, welcome to the Paranormal Peep Show on the Paranormal UK Radio Network, and this is our Christmas special. So we've got some extra special guests with us this evening. Andy will be joining us. We will catch him up later on. We've also got the Kinsella twins joining us later on, the psychic twins of Twin Souls, who also on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. But here we have with us presently is one of our regulars, Ben Emlyn-Jones. Welcome back, Ben. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks, Neil. It's good to be back on the show yet again. I think this is maybe the third or fourth Christmas special I've done with you. And
really? Wow,
nice,
they certainly race through them.
Yeah, time flies.
Absolutely. And also, previous Christmas special guest is Nic Sands joining us with his NASA shirt on. Welcome back, Nick. How are you?
Yeah. Hi, Neil. Hi, Ben. Hi, Leigh. It's great to be back on the Christmas special. It was a lovely surprise. Thank you.
Well, yeah, we like surprises, although you did know about it beforehand, so don't let the cat out of the bag. And we also have Leigh Thatcher, who has joined us previously on the Paranormal Peep Show a couple of years ago, where Andy and I interviewed. Welcome back, Leigh. How are you?
Good evening. Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. I'm doing really well, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you for joining us. So, Ben, first of all, we'll come to you. What have you been up to? You've had a busy year, haven't you?
Very. It's been a good year. It's been a vast improvement, of course, since the old C word that was devastating the world for a couple of years. I've done a lot of work with you, where we've produced 2 Apollo Detectives videos with our friends, and it's been absolutely fantastic. And I've just interviewed Marcus Allen for the Herpanmo show on Herpanmo Radio, which is a show I present every week. So I'm looking forward to that.
But you've also been out and about doing conferences, attending conferences and doing talks and things, haven't you?
Yes, I very much missed doing that, and I have actually been to a number of them. I've actually been to about 5 or 6. I attended it's called the Weird Weekend North. I went to the Outer Limits magazine conference in Hull. I went to the Bases Project conference and the Lancashire Anomalous Phenomena Investigation Society, and that's only the ones I can remember off the top of my head. So I'm trying to make up for lost time, but on the conference circuit.
Are you going to the Probe Christmas event this year?
I didn't know there was one. How could I miss that?
I believe I got an email about it. I'm not sure the date. I think it's something like a Saturday, 17th of December, maybe.
I think that's the Basis Project. I think you're thinking of the Basis Project.
What did I say? I thought I said
you
Basis.
said Probe, but no, it's the Basis Project.
Oh God, yes, Basis. Sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. I can't get to that, so I'm very sad about that. I won't get to that one, which is really annoying. It's because of work, so I'll have to miss that one. But it's there if for anyone else who wants to go there. Miles Johnston does a fantastic conference, which is full of atmosphere and fun. So do get to that one if you can.
Great. And there's obviously Nick. That's where we first met you at one of Miles Johnston's Basis conferences. Will you be getting to any of those maybe next year?
I've actually done quite a bit of a last minute cock up, if you pardon the phrase.
We don't mind those.
I booked it, got a ticket, and typical for me, I've cancelled it at the last minute because of the severe weather and the industrial action and things. So I'll be missing it, unfortunately.
Oh, yeah, because you live up in
Northeast.
That's right. So it's quite a fair way for you to travel, isn't it?
Yeah.
So would you have come down via train or something, maybe?
Yeah. But there's the industrial action and the severe weather's just knocked it all on the head. So
yeah. I mean, severe weather. We haven't got any snow yet, but is it expected?
Yeah. Well, I've been talking about it with Miles Johnson as well. There's a thing called the Pleiadian Connection DVD Part 1. And the Pleiadians are saying we're actually overdue an ice age. So
right. That's interesting, because funny enough, I was walking down the high street the other day with Monica, my partner, and there was these people, climate change people with a stall. And there was this old lady handing out leaflets, and she came up to me and she said, what do you think about climate change? She said, holding a leaflet out to me. And I just said to her, it's a hoax. And she went, oh, like that. And she sort of didn't know what to do, and she just stopped. And Monica was going, oh no, like that, really cringing.
Yeah.
She didn't know what to think. So, but that's the thing, like back in the 70s, they were talking about us going into an ice age, and then suddenly the narrative changed, didn't it, Ben? It suddenly changed
Yeah.
at some point.
It's just, I think they're suffering from a bit of a dilemma, whoever's behind this New World Order agenda, because they're trying to pull, at the moment, they're trying to push two different narratives at once, which are contradictory depending on what kind of weather we get. So, for example, according to the climate change models in various parts of Europe, it's due to be much warmer and wetter. So winters would basically be very windy with lots of rain, but very little or no ice or snow. At the same time, they've already put out the message that we're suffering from deprivations and heating bill rises this winter because of fuel shortages caused by their engineered war in Ukraine, and various other things. They're engineered, what pandemic, which you can't say on YouTube. So what they're going to go with, I mean, if the weather turns cold, which the forecast at the moment looks like we are going to get a spell of cold weather, that's going to contradict the climate change models, the prediction models. However, if the weather actually turns warmer and wetter, it's going to mean we won't need to worry so much about heating bills. So at the moment, I think they're suffering from a bit of they're seeing to see which way it goes, I think, or they may be trying something with HARP or chemtrails to give us a particular kind of weather, which they can do. So at the moment, I think they're either tossing a coin or they're planning. So we'll see how it goes in the next couple of months.
So the Pleiadians, Nic, what are they saying about the climate? Nic's obviously been in contact. You're a contactee, just to remind people. You've had contactee experiences with the Pleiadian star system, which is the Seven Sisters, commonly known as the Seven Sisters. That's that region of space where these beings come from. I think I might refer to them as Nordics. Other people call them Nordics on the ET alien kind of listings. But so what are they talking about as far as climate change? I mean, do they sort of say it's engineered, or do they say it's a very real thing? What's their idea?
Up to now, with studying the Billy Meyer contact reports, actually from Switzerland in his farm and that. They're saying basically that there's a thing called the diurnal range, which is increasing, and that's the 24-hour range between the middle of the night and like the hottest part of the sun, the hottest part of midday. So that's increasing, and we're getting like an annual sort of comparison to the diurnal range. That's increasing as well. So they're saying if you put those two together, you'll realize we're getting like a thing called the photon belt, and even the galactic equator, as we move through a 26,000 year cycle, says we're probably going to get really extremes, but we're still overdue an ice age, and that all they can do is blame humans for breathing out carbon dioxide, which is ridiculous,
Yeah, don't hold your breath.
Yeah.
So I mean, this is the thing, is that as a kid they were always talking about ice ages, and we're going to return to an ice age, and that we had an ice age, what was it, 10,000-12,000 years ago or something, or was it 26,000 years ago? I don't know, but Ben, you talk about space weather a lot and things like that. What's your idea of this ice age?
Well, it was indeed an ice age, which was called the Pliocene age, and it ended roughly about 12,000 BC. And there was a younger Dryas in between, because the climate is always changing. During the Pliocene, there were things were a lot different. We had ice caps as far south as where I am in Oxford, and so the North Pole ice cap expanded enormously. There were creatures as well. There were animals which went extinct when the Earth got warmer. For example, the woolly mammoth, this elephant that used to wander the temperate zones, rather like its naked cousins do today in Africa and India. And humans were around at the time, of course. Now, the Ancient Apocalypse TV series that's just come on Netflix is Graham Hancock, who I've been following for a while, has made a a program with Randall Carlson about this, and I've listened to Graham and Randall talking about this on the Joe Rogan podcast, but I've not seen the series yet. But I'm familiar with the arguments that they make that this ended very suddenly, and that caused a massive global cataclysm. The polar ice cap shrank really a long way back to their present location. The sea levels rose about 300 feet. The people who survived this cataclysm would have talked about nothing else for generations, and this eventually found its way into the mythology of the world millennia later, which all speaks about the Great Flood, Noah and the Ark, Cantor River Gwaelod, the Manu in the Vedas and things like that. Talk about the Ark and Atlantis and things like that. I think the message is, that it's not. I mean, there's a lot of propaganda about people hating themselves, and I mean, there's even like on the Georgia Guidestones, thankfully now gone, it said, "Be not a cancer upon the earth," and things like that. And these epithets are often repeated in things like the World Economic Forum and the Bilderberg Group. There's the message is that we humans are the problem, and it's our very presence on this earth that is causing all these things, such as climate change, like of the type that's just depicted in Ancient Apocalypse. But when you look at what's going, actually, when you look at the reality, the Earth is a dynamic world. It is a system involving climate, involving, as you mentioned, the sun in terms of space weather. That is, the sun has an enormous effect on the Earth's climate. Volcanoes do as well. And we just have to face the fact we live on a planet which is geologically active, which is climatically active, which is quite close to its parent star, to the point where there's a lot of liquid water. And sometimes the Earth can become very violent. It can sometimes purge entire species from its own biosphere. And it's possible that we might be on that list one day, and there's nothing we can do about it. This is nature. It's the universe we live in. It's the world we live in, and it's time for, I think, for humans to resist this propaganda that says that we are responsible for this. It's our fault.
Well, because the way I understand it is that the planets in our own solar system are also going through their own climate change, if you like, and there's no one on them. Well, the presence of water on the Mars I mean, they found lots of water on Mars, but the southern polar ice cap that used to be dry ice they've actually found a considerable amount of liquid water ice building up. This indicates that the temperature on Mars is rising for the accumulation of ice at the South Pole. There's been a great storm, like when there's lots of dust storms and things on Mars. It's still very cold there. I mean, far colder than almost anywhere else on Earth, apart from, there's only places like Antarctica and Siberia that get as cold as Mars. But it's still warming, and so again, it's like I really find it very sinister that there's so much psychological pressure and cultural pressure put on us at the moment. It's almost like, as Andy Thomas, our mutual friend and colleague, says, everything's designed to break our spirit. And I think it's because so that we will, if someone does suggest at some point a global authoritarian state to save the planet and to save humanity from ourselves, that people will sort of just nod their heads and go along with it. And these include people who are involved in maybe some of the projects designed to, can we say this on YouTube? To reduce the Earth's population from what is 8 billion as it is now to a much lower level, a considerable small fraction of what it is now, using methods. I mean, I can't go into the methods, but there's various methods they're using for this. That somehow we'll just go, okay, maybe we deserve it. See what I mean?
Well, the Pleiadians taught me there's a thing called biological indicators, and the sun as well, called stellar immunoresponse, and it's like the James Lovelock Gaia hypothesis that Ben was hinting on, and they see it like the sun is a variable star, and if you look in, I don't want to go all religious, but it is mentioned in the New Testament where it says stars differ in splendor. And our star is called a variable star, which, due to its very nature, it throws all kinds of space weather our way. And if you look up the James Lovelock book, The Gaia Hypothesis, You'll find some incredible information related to that in there.
I've read that book. Yeah, it's very interesting because Lovelock caused a lot of stir when he published this book, because he actually challenged one of the main domineering fear porn type messages at the time, because I think was it the 60s he wrote this book, or the 70s, but he said that the nuclear if there was a nuclear exchange of nuclear weapons, despite all the destruction, it wouldn't actually affect the Earth's environment. He said it would affect the humans' civilization enormously, but it wouldn't affect the Earth's environment. So the nuclear winter thing was not real. But it's a good, interesting point, because we've just left the solar minimum. I've been covering this on my show. The sun goes through an 11-year cycle of activity. The solar minimum has been very deep this particular cycle. The last time we had a solar minimum this deep actually was in, I believe, the 16th century, when there was a considerable decrease in sunspot activity. And this was followed indeed by a considerable drop in Earth's temperature. And this was actually a very difficult time for many people. It was known as the Little Ice Age, and your farmers had a lot of problems. There were famines in various countries and things like that. So I mean, this is if there was a global drop in temperature, we would face that challenge again.
The good old days, eh?
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, go on, Ben. Yeah,
I was going to say, I'm curious about what Nic said, and ask him a bit more about who the Pleiadians actually are, because I'm in touch with several people who are knowledgeable on the Pleiadians.
Yeah.
They're often depicted as humanoid, very, very much like us. Are they actually living amongst us?
Good question. I've been told that because of the military forces and what they try to do is shoot down their ships. They have to stay in high orbit in their motherships and things. Then they can't be shot down.
Is this like the Space Force and the weapons the Space Force has?
I don't know. I think that's like something to do with the SSP and the Americans. That might be completely separate. I
The
don't
secret
know.
space program, yeah.
Yeah,
I do remember seeing some footage. I think it was done from the space shuttle camera or something. It's quite well known amongst UFO enthusiasts, where you see this object moving towards the Earth, and then suddenly this thing shoots up from the Earth, and this
Yeah.
object changes direction, trying to avoid this potentially a missile or something.
That is an incredible piece of footage. Yes, I know the one you mean. I think it's STS-80.
Yeah.
There's the actual craft appears to react. There's like a bright flash of light, and the craft appears to react just in time to avoid what looks like a streak of light coming up from the ground. Interestingly, someone has calculated exactly where that was on the ground. It turns out it's Central Australia.
Really?
Now there's a facility there called Pine Gap, which is it's actually a listening station, part of the Five Eyes network of the electronic intelligence agencies of the world. Yet maybe it has another purpose there as well.
Yeah, I think a lot of these places have dual purposes. One for the public, and they think it's this, but under the hood, there's lots of other things going on that you don't get to know about. You know, it's like lots of things where they're sending, like, for instance, the space shuttle goes up, and it might do something to, say, the well, it used to, of course, go up. It might do something to, say, the space telescope, but they're also popping something else out in orbit at the same time. Some military operation, and you might hear about that there's a military cargo on board, but that's as far as it'll go. You won't actually know what it's doing, but you assume it's some kind of, spy satellite or something similar. Coming to Leigh now. So Leigh, we've been hearing things about your own research with a group you're doing. What do you call it? I forget the word now. Remote viewing. Yeah. Thank you. My mind's a bit of a blank in these December months. I'm a bit slow. You probably knew that anyway.
I actually have you to blame for my group, because it was when you had Tony Toppin do a talk, and I thought, I've got to go and see this guy, and came to see his talk. His UFO stuff was interesting, but it was the remote viewing thing that he did at the end, and it sparked a bit of an interest. And it's got to be 5 or 6 years ago, I think.
Wow.
And I tried setting a group up with like a pagan group that I was involved in. They weren't really that interested, and then friend of ours, Rachel Bonner and David Bonner, they they suggested that they could facilitate a group. So yeah, we started it in, I think it was 2018, and yeah, we'd meet once a week. Once a month. And I thought, I took it seriously, but then people started coming up from London to join. I mean, I'm based in Birmingham, so it's quite a fair way to travel. And so yeah, we amassed probably, say, 6 or 7 core people for the group, and you'd have sort of people coming and going every month, but we stuck with the same 6 people for probably about 2 or 3 years now. Obviously, past few years we haven't been able to do much, but I'm getting the group back together again, and a bit like the Blues Brothers. But yeah, the results that we got was actually quite phenomenal.
So what kind of did you sort of direct the, say, tests or something, or the research, saying, right, here's some coordinates, go and try and find out what it is, and you would secretly know what the place was that they're supposedly tuning into?
No, I was actually part of the what would you call them, the people doing the actual remote viewing. So my wife Lucy, she would pick a either something random or an object or a location. She'd do that at work. She'd print the picture off, put it in the envelope, and I would ask her to just pick a number to kind of put on the envelope, two-digit number. I would get the envelope. I'd take it to my group. We used to meet in a bar, but on the top sort of level, so there was nobody about. So the procedure was, I wouldn't to begin with. You'd have on the envelope location or object, so you'd know vaguely what you were sort of looking for. And then over the months, I sort of changed it and added, we'd do a meditation beforehand. We'd use a certain sound frequency during our sort of target practice, if you like. So that's, and then when we finished doing the sessions in Birmingham, in the city centre, we started doing them at my house. So then we started using different sort of techniques to find the targets. As I say, meditation was one of them. Sound, we'd have a frequency sort of playing, and so with the number on the envelope, I would get the individuals to just think about the number and place the number in front of them, and ask them what it felt like, what you could hear, what it felt, what the number felt like. Very kind of abstract to begin with, but then what we found is what Lucy used to print off was a picture from a magazine. Sometimes she'd take a picture from a magazine, and that would be the target. But what you'd find is that you'd have a picture on the back of the like the reverse, if you like. And what people were picking up was the reverse of the page, not the actual target.
Right, that's interesting.
If that makes sense. So what you'd find is that, let's say the target was, let's say, the Eiffel Tower, and that was on the page, and on the back of the page was, let's say, people doing some washing up, you'd often find that people would pick up on the people doing the washing up on the back of the page.
Interesting. So, did you try? I know that there was. I mean, Ben, you would know about this, and maybe Nick as well. Ingo Swann was well known for doing remote viewing back in the 70s, and he was typically given coordinates, just coordinates, and he would home in on them. And in a lot of cases, he was working for the US secret agencies like the NSA or something like that, and he would be given coordinates of perhaps Russian submarines or something like that.
Stargate project, I think.
Yeah.
Stargate.
So, I mean, did you think that you could try that, or did you kind of explore that possibility where you could literally go to places rather than just like given a map coordinate that no one would possibly know where it was or have any preconceived idea? They're just given a map coordinate or something, perhaps like Ingo Swann would be.
Yeah, we did try one session with coordinates. That didn't really pick up much in the way of information. The coordinates didn't tend to work.
It's very interesting. I find that because I've done a bit of remote viewing. I did Tony Topping's course. I got interesting results actually. I did the same course again in Hull at the Rawcon, and I also got good results. But then it turns out he used the same prompt, so it could be I subconsciously remembered it. But I did the first time. I didn't. I was completely double blind. But it seems to be that the subconscious mind seems to be involved very, very much indeed. I mean, I've looked into the background. I know about the 1973 experiments at Stanford that was done with Uri Geller. Hal Puthoff, who's now in TTSA, Hal Puthoff and Russell Targ, they did their tests on Uri Geller, and it's very, very interesting. Funnily enough, it was just after that the whole thing seemed apparently shut down, and Uri Geller then became a sort of second-rate stage magician. But I think it was actually seconded by the CIA as a black project, and Geller virtually confirmed this in 2013.
I have my suspicions about Geller, actually.
Yeah, but the point is that what Leigh has described is that it's not what you see. It's actually a subconscious. It's almost like a kind of you're sensing something anyway. That's like on the back, like you say on the back, the things you're not looking at.
Well, what we found is that meditation didn't quite work. So I would get the people to the students, if you like, to come up with the first thing that came into their heads, and what you'd find is that they would draw something very quickly within seconds, and they discard it, they scribble it out, they discard it, and then they'd start to think about what the target was, and because they started to think as opposed to feel the target was, that's when they didn't get the target.
Yeah.
But when you revealed the actual, when we opened the envelope at the end, you'd find that the thing that they drew right at the beginning, their first instinct, you'd find that was the actual target.
Now this is interesting because it sounds very similar to clairvoyance, mediumship, which I know about, and certainly Andy does, because he does that for his evening profession, if you like, in his tuned in events. And I actually did some mediumship the other night. I was booked to do one here in Weymouth at their spiritual centre, and it was the very last person I was doing a public reading for. And the thing is, when you do this sort of thing in front of a load of people, you don't know what you're going to say or what you're going to get, and so it's like getting up without a script. You don't know how it's going to go. It's very sort of spontaneous. It's spontaneity, and also it's a very sort of off the cuff sort of stuff. But you have to take the stuff that comes through. Sometimes it doesn't make sense, and you don't understand, and the person doesn't understand. But then it comes through again in a clearer way. Now, interestingly, I felt drawn to go to the back of the room, and I said I was coming to this lady, and one of the first things I got was a name. And I said, Pete. And she goes, yep, I can take that. And I instantly felt a brother connection. So I said, is he a brother? And she goes, yeah. And I thought, oh my God, this is going good. 2 out of 2 so far. And as this reading was going on, the information just started to flow. And some people, it works. You connect up, and it like is a clear kind of connection. Other people, it's like trying to pull teeth for. And this was one of those ones where the clear connection was coming through. And this is the weird bit, is that I started to see boats with this lady, like ferry boats and things. And I was getting like 3 points on a map in my mind, clairvoyantly. And I said, I'm seeing 3 like destinations. Like I said, it's like a triangle of locations where a ferry boat would go to. And I said, it's almost like that show that was on in the 1980s with Kate O'Mara in, and I just couldn't think of a show. But in fact, afterwards, I realised the show was actually called Triangle, and it was Kate O'Mara in this show about this boat that travelled between 3 destinations, like Dover and someplace in France and someplace over in Norway or wherever it was. I can't remember but that was what it's called, Triangle. And I just said, I just see it. And this lady said, I used to know Kate O'Mara. I said, really? She goes, yeah, she used to live in the same village as me, and I was very good friends with her. And I thought, oh my God. And I was thinking,
wow.
Yeah, I was thinking, shit, was Kate O'Mara trying to, because she's passed over. See, was Kate O'Mara somehow giving me that information from the other side? I never felt Kate O'Mara come through or saw a lady in my mind. But suddenly I was picking up this information. So maybe clairvoyantly, I was picking up the fact that she knew her rather than the spirit came out. I don't really know, but I thought it was a bit of a weird coincidence that she knew her, and I was talking about her prior to thing. Nick, you got some experience with this kind of stuff?
Yeah, my sister as well. Malcolm Robinson, the famous Scottish researcher.
Yep, UFO researcher and poltergeist writer and stuff. Yeah.
He's wrote in a couple of his latest books about some gifted people of the same. And they're apparently getting messages from the other side from George Adamski.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which I thought was absolutely fascinating.
What does he say about the other side?
It's just these gifted people he mentions in his book. 2 books actually available on Amazon. Malcolm Robinson, and it's George Adamski trying to come through to tell them some important messages.
Do we know what the messages were saying?
I can't remember offhand, but they're in Malcolm Robinson's books.
Okay. Now, of course, George Adamski was a well-known contactee of the. Was it the 1950s? He was around doing his stuff, Ben.
Yeah.
Because he was quite controversial at the time with his kind of contactee information, wasn't he? Claiming that he'd gone to Venus, that kind of thing. It was a bit sort of people at the time believed him, but then Ben, you could take up the story from there, couldn't you?
Yeah, he's one of the first generation of ET contactees and one of the most famous. And he wrote several books. He actually had meetings with people, and large numbers of people used to come along. Thousands of people used to go sky watching with him and things like that. His report, I can't remember all the details off the top of my head, but I know that he was very, he said he had contact with people from Venus, and a lot of people took it very, very seriously. These experiences were very, very detailed. Now, at the time, this was the early 1950s. At the time he had these experiences, no one actually knew what Venus was like. There was lots of theories that it was some kind of paradise, a kind of Earth's twin, where everything was really wonderful there. It was warmer because it was closer to the sun and things like that. In the 1970s, the Russians sent some probes there, which revealed it's actually one of the most inhospitable places in the universe. It's very, very hot there. There's acid, rain. It's extremely high pressure atmosphere, very dense atmosphere indeed, which gives it's like an ocean when you get to the surface, like being 3,000 feet deep under the sea. The craft actually had to be built like a diving bell. So people say, well, that means Adamski made it up. Because he said, well, I'll choose Venus because it's the nearest planet and no one knows what it's like there. Because these creatures, obviously creatures of the type that Adamski describes could not possibly have come from the real Venus. But then this is based on the proviso that the aliens, the whatever the kind of species that he was talking to was honest with him. As Dr. Carla Turner has revealed, extraterrestrials are not always straight with us. They sometimes do deceive us. Now, this does not necessarily for nefarious purposes. I mean, it's possible to tell little white lies, actually, to help people. If you that line from the Matrix, there's a difference between knowing the path and walking it, and things like this. But it does indicate that the aliens are tricksters. Some species are known to spin yarns with people and lead them down blind alleys for whatever reason. And it's possible that these were the ones that Adamski was having contact with. And so I don't dismiss Adamski's experiences just because of this issue to do with the real planet Venus. I think it's very interesting. I spoke to Gerard Aartse. I actually did an interview with him, and he's like a modern day reviver of Adamski's legacy.
Because things I've seen, like the saucers, the famous Adamski saucer that then turned up in some schoolboy's photograph back in the sort of 70s or something.
Right, I thought that was Billy Meyer. Was that Adamski or Billy Meyer?
I thought it was an Adamski saucer that this boy had photographed, like a 12-year-old boy or something in the north of England.
It's supposed to be the lid of a water cooler built in England. Yeah. That was then later. Someone else said no, that's not true. I can't remember exactly how that was resolved because someone disputed it actually was that. They actually got hold of the water cooler lid and it looks very different.
Because there was this sort of 8mm film that Adamski supposedly took of one of these saucers, and it's like wobbling. It's almost like as if it's on a string or fishing wire or something. It looks ridiculous. But then the Pentagon or whoever's
changing shape as well.
Yeah, this is it. The spheres at the bottom, like three spheres or sort of domes, were coming in and out or something, weren't they? I
think the idea was that because it was changing shape, that was kind of the thumbs up for it being an authentic video sort of thing.
Yeah.
It was caught morphing backwards and forwards.
There's been craft in Wales that have done a similar thing. They've been said to be triangular, but witnesses in Wales have said that they've been changing shape as well, almost like they've got like a force field or something to protect them. So
Gary Jones, a local ufologist, has actually investigated that. That's true. Yeah,
Sorry, go on, Leigh.
I was going to say that when it comes to video evidence and photographic evidence, this doesn't carry the weight maybe that certainly today it's even bigger problem today with the ability, the technology to create realistic false images. But whatever video or footage or whatever kind of material you put out there in terms of video or photographic evidence, someone is going to come along and say it's fake, and they're going to come up with some good reasons why, and sometimes superficially plausible reasons why they think that. We've seen this with Mick West talking about the go fast and gimbal and that kind of footage and the tic tac and things like that. We've had all kinds of whenever this material is published, that always happens. It's picked apart in every detail. We've seen it with the Calvine UFO. Some guys come along and said it's a Christmas decoration. How he knows that, God knows why. I think he's just guessing. But it's a sad situation because you can't. It is a poor quality film that you see here. It's from a handheld cine camera. There's no soundtrack. It might well be real, and indeed a lot of these images could well be real. But the people presenting them very often, especially nowadays, are the ultimate little boy who cried wolf, because of the terrible signal to noise ratio problem. And it was a problem. It was an issue back in the 50s. I mean, there were fake UFO photos coming out. People were throwing hubcaps in the air and taking them on fast exposures and things like that. And it doesn't help actually that newspapers offer cash rewards for what they say is genuine evidence. We've had this with Loch Ness as well. The moment the media does this and offers cash incentives, people will then just be incentivized to create realistic fakes just to get hold of the money. So I feel sorry for people if Adamski, if this is indeed a real piece of evidence that Adamski has created, indeed anyone else who presents evidence that might be real in terms of video or photographic evidence, then I feel very sorry for them because it doesn't carry the weight. It doesn't always carry the weight that it should, or they think it's going to carry.
I remember seeing some photographs of George Adamski's experiences, and one of them was like a supposedly a cigar-shaped UFO with portholes in it. And it says George Adamski can be seen in the porthole. You looked at, there was a close-up, and it had George Adamski looking out at this porthole, and it looked like it was completely cut out and stuck on to me. You know, I was thinking, oh my god! And supposedly the alien in the other craft borrowed George Adamski's camera and took a photograph out the UFO looking back at him. You know, yeah.
I want to go back to what Ben said earlier about
the
idea of UFO contact being almost like not a hoax as such, but tricksters, like a
sometimes
tricked, and there's some. I don't know if you remember, Neil, years ago when I did a talk for you. One of the main UFOs that I saw was like a caterpillar.
I remember you saying it was a creature in the sky type of thing. Yeah,
caterpillar thing. And this was 10 years ago. And quite a few years later, I realised that there was a crop circle back in '94 that was exactly the same as the. I've got the picture in front of me here. The crop circle was exactly the same as the UFO that I saw, which was
wow.
biological in nature. And so that, you know, there's one link straight away. And it was only last year that I thought, I wonder if there's a link to the time or the date that it actually occurred, like both the crop circle and the UFO that I saw. And it happens to be the same date. It was the 15th of July. So the crop circle was 15th of July 94. The UFO that I saw was 15th of July 2012. Now, coming up to the sort of 10-year anniversary, if you like, July just gone, I thought to myself, I wonder if, you know, if there's a connect, if I can sort of summon it, if you like, and, you know, see if there's a link. And nothing happened. And it did strike me as being, thought, am I being played here? Is there and I was listening to a podcast the other day, and it was an Irish paranormal investigator, and he said the same thing, that there's a lot of trickery going on with the paranormal and with the UFO contact situation.
It's very much something that John Keel put forward in various books over the 60s and 70s, where UFO nauts would contact contactees, if you like Adamski or whoever it may be, and say, you know, we're space brothers, etc., and by and large, they would make predictions that would come true about certain assassinations taking place and things like that. But when they said, right, we'll do this or do that, they would never turn up. And or they would say they're from a certain planet, and it turned out that the planet they were describing was actually a herb. The name of the planet could be a herb or some botanical species. You're thinking, why are they doing this? I mean, Nick, you've obviously got some experience in these areas. I mean, with the Pleiadians, do you find that that's some sort of does that sort of go against the grain of what you experience with Pleiadian contacts and things?
No, there is a type of UFO that is organic in nature because it exists in space. And I think there's even a mothership that has like organic properties as well. And anything that attacks the craft, it's got like force fields, and it's got like an organic nature to it as well to stave off other kinds of attacks. So that resonates big time with me. Yeah.
But what about the idea that maybe some of these ETs or aliens that could be leading us up the garden path with false information? Do you think that's a likely scenario, or in your case, it's completely the opposite?
No, I think some of the crop circles are just too fast, too perfect, and too intricate to be anything else. They're definite ET manifestations. And I think that the ones that debunkers will go on about, saying it's just Doug and Dave with a plank wood and a bit of rope, I think that is just what Colin Andrews would say is a form of a beginning of friendship and contact. It's just the natives trying to reply to friendly aliens. So it's just a two-way beginning of the wake-up call, I think.
Doug and Dave being the famous retired gents in the southwest or whatever that were supposedly responsible for all the crop circles in all of the world with a plank and a bit of wood.
I remember that so well.
I'd like to know how they made the ice circles and the sand circles on the other side of the globe.
Well, it's holidays, of course.
And also, I could say, well, why did they not take up the offer? Because there was a lady, I can't remember her name. She's quite a famous actress. She actually offered them. I think she was going to pay them £100,000 out of her own pocket if they could reproduce some of the circles, which with Dick you mentioned some of the larger, more complicated ones, and said if they could reproduce those, she'd pay them £100,000. Now that sounds like an offer too good to turn down. As when James Randi died, Neil and I, we did that discussion on James Randi. You've got to ask the same question, and funnily enough, the people like the Matthew Williams and the people who make them with planks, they came up with various excuses of why they wouldn't go for this offer, and I think that it gets to the point where you think to yourself, okay, look, if you don't want the money, just give it to me. Come on, go on. So yeah, it's I fell for the Doug and Dave hoax. Unfortunately, I was very young at the time. I was a teenager, and I just have to plead youthful ignorance. But I actually did watch the Doug and Dave news story, and I thought, oh well, that's it then. Mystery solved. Because it was good. If you remember at the time, crop circles were getting really popular. Do you remember? They were featured in TV adverts, and they were discussed in news programs. And then along comes Doug and Dave, and that's it. And it's never talked about again outside alternative circles. It was actually many years later. I saw Andy Thomas on the Esther show with Esther Ranson. And he was holding up pictures of them, and I said, "What is this still going on? I thought I was all sorted out." And I suddenly realised that the media had basically pulled a trick on the general public, and I'd fallen for it.
There are companies out there that do crop circles for advertising. There was a glass bong company, like a glassware company that made bongs, I think, and it was called the Mothership. If you Google Mothership and crop circle, you'll come up with this. We've got an interesting crop circle with leaves and all sorts of bits and bobs on it, but that was actually created for an advertisement for their company. So they employed a group of crop circle makers to do it. But then you kind of think, because I knew inadvertently somebody that was part of the crop circle scene, and the idea was that they go into the fields without really knowing what they're going to create, or they have an idea what they're going to create, and the image is sort of imparted to them spiritually, and that's what they kind of create on the spot.
Like almost like a beginning of a two-way friendship experience.
So but in the 80s, I thought the crop circles were all UFOs. And then because like when you say with the Doug and Dave crop circles, but in the 80s they were very basic, and then in the 90s they just leaped into these very sharp, intricate designs. And I thought, well, they've got to be created by UFOs. And then there was that video, I think it was probably 94, 95, of these lights swirling around.
Oh yeah.
Field, then the crop just kind of drops, and then you've got the crop circle just appears. Have you ever seen?
Yeah.
Oh, that was the Carl Wabley hoax. Oh, not hoax. I'm not sure what it was. I don't say it was a hoax.
It's
been denounced as a hoax. Yeah, Carl Weatherly or Carl. He's got several different names that came forward. What he did was, he actually showed people. He went to the barge and he showed people through the viewfinder what he'd filmed. Which and then he went back to home, and then he like processed it, but so a number of people saw that before he'd even gone home. So it seems you've got to ask yourself, how did he do that? How did he manage to what? Because if he'd have had to fake it and then he'd have had to be there, fake it, and come back and show people
you're saying that he filmed it, showed
Mm.
some people before he even went back home with his footage to put it on the player.
He showed people literally within a
and
few hours. Yeah.
The only thing you could see it on was literally on the tape in the camera, and the only way you could play it back, as you could do in those days, was play the tape back, and you could see it playing back through the viewfinder of the camera it's filmed on.
Yeah, this was literally when the barge opens. This was literally just a few hours after he filmed this in the early morning.
The barge being the location.
Yeah, the famous barge. Yes.
Yeah.
The famous barge inn. Yes, which is the centre of the sort of croppy community.
Yeah. And so he had filmed it that day. People had witnessed it, and then he actually took it home and saw it on his own VHS player or something later on.
Yeah, I mean,
big screen star.
Yeah, Michael Glickman did an analysis of it. So did Christopher Everard, and they thought it was real. Then apparently this bloke appeared in, I think it was in Germany, English guy in Germany, with a slightly different name, I think, and said, yes, it was very simple to do. I just took it to my studio and in Cardiff or somewhere, and I overlaid these. I mixed this vision and I overlaid these images, and I created this little CGI ball and things like that. And I thought to myself, it could be another Doug and Dave. It's another Doug and Dave. They're just putting out there to try and dissuade interest.
Yeah.
The problem is the case of. Sorry, Leigh, go on.
Go on, Nick.
There was the case of a radio telescope where they were doing some kind of astronomy work, and they got an answer back with the Drake equation.
Bolton. Yeah, Chill Bolton. That was fascinating. Neil knows I did a talk on this subject, but it was the Arecibo message of 1974, which apparently it was actually pointed at a star cluster, not the Pleiades. It was a different star cluster. It was a globular cluster, which is 25,000 light years away. And they said, well, if it's going at the speed of light, it's going to take 50,000 years because the signal's got to go there, and then when they reply straight away, it's going to take another 25,000 years. 50,000 years we have to wait for a reply. Oh dear! Put your feet up, guys. Get the kettle on. But maybe the actual thing that was in near the Chill Bolton Observatory wasn't a repeat of the Arecibo message. It had slight differences, if you remember. It had it's in the space of the human figure, there was like a little alien figure, a little grey alien type figure. Fascinating stuff. I mean, and it appeared overnight in a place that's obviously, because it's an observatory, there's a lot of people in there at night time. No one saw anything. So very fascinating. There were several interesting images from that particular field over between 2000 or 2002, something like that.
That image, it looks rather like something you'd print off on a dot matrix printer if you printed that image off, because it had that kind of segmented, kind of angular structure to the image of the
That's
alien.
how it was created. Yeah, I mean, the original Arecibo message was created in a similar way. But of course, this was in a field with crop, which is fascinating. I mean, several people have come forward and said, "Oh, I did it," and David Caton says he knows the people who did it, but they've never. Sometimes teams will claim things that they didn't do. I know, because there was one crop circle appeared. It was like this wonderful three-dimensional kind of Merkaba type structure. It's somewhere in Hampshire. Two separate crop circle teams actually came forward and said that they did it. Either one of them's lying, or they're both lying.
Nick, do you think that it's ET doing these crop circles all the time, or do you think it's human consciousness or Earth, or what?
Well, I think just what I said before. Colin Andrews is the main man, and Dr. Stephen Greer as well, if you can contact them. And it's unfortunate that Colin Andrews had to move to the States, but I think it's the beginning of the wake-up call, and it's a two-way contact thing. Between contactees, natives, and the guys in the big mothership. It's the beginning of like open, friendly contact. I think.
Do you think? I mean, it's an interesting thing because you got these ETs, aliens, whatever you want to call them, making personal contact with people, literally sort of talking to them, saying we are so and so. But then you get in a bigger broadsheet in the form of these crop circles for everyone to see. It's a bit of a sort of two-pronged approach to communication. I don't know if that's like just the way I perceive it, but it's almost as if they're trying various ways of getting themselves seen. Well, obviously getting seen in the skies is one thing, but then they're actually being seen on the ground as printing off their kind of calling card, if you like, with a crop circle, if it is them responsible. Have you ever been in a crop circle, Leigh, or tuned into it or something?
No, I think my attitude to crop circles is they're meant to be viewed from above.
Yeah.
So I think to walk into a crop circle, can't really see point. To be totally honest, I think they're meant to be viewed from above. So that's where it sort of starts and stops.
Yeah. So it's interesting actually because with the crop circle, you've literally, in a sense, it's like doing a drawing or something. You've got to kind of carve your image onto the ground so it stays permanent. Now, you wonder if the ETs would have the technology to restructure clouds into a pattern so that we could all look up at the sky and see like an image of an alien's face in a cloud or something like that. But that doesn't seem to be the case, or am I mistaken? Has anyone seen structures in clouds?
Well, I have all the time, but there's this thing called pareidolia, which is very unfalsifiable. And unfortunately, no matter what appears in the clouds, that you'll get that. It could be that there'll be something really striking in a cloud, which will be a complete anomaly. Like the film Nope, which has recently come out, which is about UFOs. An extraterrestrial object is discovered because a ufologist watches a time lapse footage of clouds passing and notices one of the clouds doesn't move. The others blow with the wind, and this one doesn't move. Based on what Leigh said about, I want to comment on what Leigh said about the crop circles being designed to be seen from above. Funnily enough, in some of the crop circles, especially the famous 2002 galaxy formation, there is actually a forced perspective element in them. And now a lot of them are built on obviously a lot of them are constructed or they appear on hillsides and things like that, so they can be seen from roads, stuff like that, almost as if they do want some people to just notice them from the ground. But when you get inside them, what's weird is some of the structures actually are a different shape on the ground, so that when you look up from above them, looking down, they look like it's a completely different shape than what they actually are. Now, you see the same effect with advertising banners at sporting events, where the banner essentially is markings on the grass. You see the same thing. You see a forced perspective effect, where if you look at it from a different angle, it looks like some strange weird shape, but when it's looked at the angle, which you see it very often with cricket, where there's a camera often looking down the wicket towards one of the.
There's a painting from Neil. You might know this, being an artist. There's a painting of like
it's the Merchants or something with a skull.
There's a skull, and you look at it, and it's kind of elongated.
Oh yeah.
You tilt the page, and it becomes
the correct perspective.
Is that what you mean, Ben?
Yeah, I know the painting you mean. It's called The Merchants of something or other. I can't remember who the artist was. But you see two guys standing there, and they've got like some weighing scales, because they're obviously weighing gold and things like that.
Merchants of Venice or something is the only thing that comes to mind. I
think that was a Shakespeare play, but it's called something like. And you see, it's the Ambassadors. Sorry, it's called The Ambassadors. Right. And there's you see a big long line. It's almost like he made a mistake, and he dropped his paint pot, and some of it splashed on the canvas. And he thought, "Damn, I don't have time to redo this or clean it off. I'm going to have to just put this up in the gallery with this mark on it." But like as Leigh says, when you look at it from a certain angle, you can quite clearly see that it looks like a human skull. And it is an element that's basically what you see with some crop circles. It's not as extreme as that, but you see a forced perspective. So when it's looked at a certain angle, it looks like something very, very different to what it actually is in real life. There's actually a graffiti artist called Julian Beaver who does this all the time with with his creations, and he's created some absolutely incredible pavement screevings and murals using this effect. So that's interesting. Guys with planks and ropes. You've got to ask yourself how they did it. And also, that particular formation, the Galaxy formation, is one of the ones that was listed as that this lady would actually pay £100,000 if someone could do it.
Wow. I'll do it.
You could try. I mean, no one's ever even none of the regular crop circle makers have even tried.
So how do you think they're made?
There's evidence from the BLT group that suggests. I think that was the what's their names? I can't remember the names of the two artists, the scientists. That something occurs within the crop itself, which causes it to bend over. There's what looks like they have growth nodes on the Levengood. Yes, Mr. Levengood and his Nancy Talbot, I think her name was. They have little lumps, a bit like knuckles on your finger.
Yeah, and they sort of bend.
They've bent over. It's like some changes happen. They've been subjected to a lot of heat at that very specific point, which has caused them basically to bend over, and that's how they're made. Indeed, there are some crop circles where a higher growth node is actually affected, and it bends over halfway up the stalk, which gives this amazing kind of like you don't get the crop completely flattened, but it's like halfway done. It's like halfway up the stalk, it's been bent over, and of course you can't do that with planks. There's no mechanical human way of doing that. So
I hear a lot about teams going out with lasers and coordinates and GPS, but it still doesn't explain the actual physical mechanics of what they're doing, if they're doing it at all.
But a laser can direct heat. Yeah, it's concentrated light beam that can direct heat.
Seems to take a lot of work though to do a whole crop circle with a laser.
Yeah, I mean, there's no evidence. There's no evidence to suggest that all a laser would do, it would just burn the stalk, probably break it into.
Yeah.
It could even be a fire risk. It could even start a fire.
I presume the laser would be to just because we use lasers. We work with you'll put a laser on the ground to get the level of where you want the patio. So I install a lot of patios. So you put a laser down to get your level, so you can stand one end of the garden where you don't need a piece of string to go from one end of the garden to the other. You just use a laser. So I'm wondering if that's what I mean by them using lasers, more of a guide.
Yeah, measuring or
as to where they're gonna. Yeah. But then that doesn't account for the circular ones.
No, that doesn't. I've got to apologise if there's any background noise. There's a guy who lives in the flat above me.
I can't hear him. That's your friend Liberace, isn't it?
Yeah. Yes.
The accompanying music.
Yeah, I could hear him.
We'll take a quick break, guys, because I've interviewed our friends Ronnie and Philip Kinsella, who host Twin Souls on the Paranormal UK radio network. And so I've been chatting to them what they've been up to this past 12 months and what they hope to achieve next year. So let's just take a little look at that and we'll be back in a minute. So Philip and Ronnie, it's very, very good to see you of Twin Souls on the Paranormal UK radio network. I've been listening to your shows the past year when I've been driving. Always found them interesting. You've got lots of great guests. But how are you both?
Yes, I'm fine, Neil. This is Philip. If we're not the proclaimers, as people sometimes think in terms of ufology, but that's what we've been labelled. We haven't walked 500 miles. We certainly haven't. We're still walking the 500 miles to find the UFOs, but I've been okay. I've been very blessed, both Ronnie and I, with some TV work and interesting research into the 9th of April 2016 sighting that we had, and connecting more dots to more witnesses that have come forward, which is going in a brand new UFO book that I have finished, that should be coming out next year by Philip Mental's Flying Disc Press. But I've had the Skycrash Throughout Time. Me and Brendan Butler have had that republished through Philip Mental as from his 2013 publication. So yeah, well, I've been concentrating on my art. As you know, being like yourself and Ronnie, an artist, and I've been working on the lizards, the reptilians, and Lucifer.
Wow.
he who should not be named. But and I'm progressing well. It's good because I use the 3D software, as you rightly stated. It's an amazing application, 3D software, ZBrush or ZBrush, however they pronounce it. But I've come leaps and bounds with it, and I'm so delighted because it gives me the chance to develop monsters and full-bodied monsters, not just heads, the poses. Because with these 3D printers we now have, the resin printers, we can develop them into actual physical models for people to hold, as opposed to just seeing them on film, or on as an image. So, and also I've been working on a book for Philip Mental. I won't give the title away. It's not top secret. It's, I think, radically new, but it's my views on the paranormal.
Wow. Both been busy with books and things.
Yeah.
To hear that you're mastering ZBrush, because you've had that how many years now?
10 years now.
Wow.
10 years. It's taken me 10 years to start, and I must admit my first renderings were appalling. I've actually looked them up, and when you look at them, you think, oh God.
But it shows how far you've come, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I've been working on it, and it's persistent. It is every week I use it. Every week I use it, and 10 years, and I've only reached a level now. I would say that is perhaps, I wouldn't say professional. I wouldn't call myself professional, but it is of a quality that is acceptable. That's a comfortable way of putting it, because you learn from the masters. I've learned from you and Molly as well, watching you doing your art, your wonderful brilliant paintings. But it's given me a new release in monster creations.
Brilliant. And where are you getting your inspiration from for these monster creations?
Well, certainly not from Lucifer, but I've done him anyway. I don't know. I don't know where it comes from. It just beams on in. I think some of them started with the cryptozoology, especially with our fascination of the Dogman. And of course, you started to I'm not very good at doing werewolves. I've tried. There's just something lacking. It could be with the fur. I don't know. But I tend to find that the reptilians and the greys and things like that are much more preferable to me. Yeah, because Ronnie's done a lot of illustrations for the new book that's completed. I'm just polishing at the moment. And that's got some other illustrations from Jason Gleaves as well. And I've had some permission to use other images in there. And so I'm really excited about that project. And when that's released next year, taking a much deeper look into the UFO stroke abduction hypothesis, and trying to assimilate certain models within the phenomena itself. And because I think that when we go down the rabbit hole, Neil, I think that when we use now the word UFO or UAP, an identified aerial phenomena, of course, it's been changed to a more scientific acronym to make it less 1950s movies. I think we're looking at a phenomena that is far more complex within its symmetry and very, very deep. And this has led me into areas of consciousness, because back in 1996, when I was very proud to have that article published in Alien Encounters called Spirits in a Material World, which dealt with the abduction, the greys, and of course the soul. This is where I wanted to extend upon the thesis, the model, going forward. So I'm very excited. Of course, most of it's just theoretical in nature. And the one thing is, I'm not, as I say to all research, I'm not in competition with anyone. It's like, with anyone in the field of ufology, it's just your way of expressing yourself and looking into it, into how you see it, how you view it, which I think is important.
Yeah, I was interviewing Preston Dennett.
Oh, yes.
Very, very good interview.
Yeah.
And we were discussing all these various ideas of, for instance, do you think there's any substance to the idea of Sasquatch being associated with UFOs? Because they have been cited in certain UFO cases. Because I was saying about the fact that there seems to be a hard line of people that want to sort of stay on one side of the fence saying, Sasquatch, they're biological, just unofficiated, as it were, by zoology or recognized by science, but they think they're living creatures, and they found hair and footprints and possible blood or something like that. And then there's the other side of the camp that said, well, look, we've seen these Sasquatches walking up ramps into UFOs, so what's that about? It's a very mysterious phenomenon.
I think before, Neil, as you know and we know, and I think a lot of other prominent ufologists know, that in the 80s, in the heyday, it was very much packaged and sold as like flying saucers, completely separate from strange creatures from time and space. John A. Keel's most amazing book that he wrote, among many other books as a researcher. Although the Mothman was one of them, wasn't it? I think it was the Mothman prophecies. I think that looking at it now, we've come a long way forwards in trying to, ascertain, especially with regards to Paul Sinclair's research in Bempton and also Skinwalker Ranch in Utah, these Rendlesham Forest as well. We have to note that that's an area of high strangeness. I think with these certain patterns are keys to unlocking this mystery. And I myself personally believe that there is a connection between not just the Sasquatch or the Dogman, but also the UFO field investigations, because we know that UFOs bring levels of high strangeness. And whether or not that is some kind of rip in the fabric of time and space when they enter our reality, we don't know. But one of the interesting points that raised is with regards to the Dogman or the werewolves. Most people would attribute that to mere fantasy, but when you start looking at the case evidence with regards to people that have encountered them, as well as Sasquatch, of course, but the Dogmans seem to be more truly terrifying in nature. And I know that there was one person who, or maybe a few, if I'm to be corrected here, because, not everything is attributed to one thought, because like the 100th month key mid syndrome, everyone seems to get ideas, but that perhaps that these creatures were being designed as some kind of soldier or super soldier, which isn't, something to debunk. We have to be open to all forms of, theories. But I do believe myself there is some kind of connection between the phenomena, which kind of like connects all of these together. So I'm on that side of the page, definitely.
And what about you, Ronnie? Are you convinced they're from outer space or they're from some other place?
I don't think they're from outer space, and I don't think they are from flying saucers. They are real. I mean, the cases we've heard of, especially with the Dogman, the werewolves, however people wish to or prefer to call them. Martin Groves is an example, a gentleman, a police officer who encountered these with his mates 30 years ago. They couldn't talk about it, but they could even smell them. So they appear to be some kind of, as you stated, biological. Yes, they become real, they bleed, they smell, they're real. But as to their origins, that's a big mystery. And I'm wondering whether it's beyond outer space, or it may be beyond the UFO enigma. We're thinking perhaps people will probably have considered this already, interdimensional or something else. Something else, but they are real. They are absolutely real. That's why people can't find them. They go and look for Sasquatch. They go and look for them. They can't find them. They just appear. And isn't it very interesting also that a lot of Dogmen, a lot of them, their eyes grow red? Yes. It's almost demonic, isn't it? Absolutely. And this is the same with Sasquatch as well, and many other beings that are seen in these remote areas, most notably, but not limited to, national forests in the United States all over. It could be in woodlands, it could be in another area. They seem to, come out of the woods, as it were, and frighten certain people. But the atmosphere changes. There are certain signs to indicate that something is not right. There are certain time displacements. It's all very bizarre. And I think and feel that, going back to your question, Neil, about whether or not you think there are some connections there, I think that's absolutely completely possible. I think the interdimensional hypothesis must be brought into the fray now, because we've been looking for so long, and we can't seem to catch them. They seem to elude our senses. They elude our camera technology on more instances than not, and every time they are caught, there's fuzzy pictures. So I think and feel that, yes, that there's a lot more. And I think when we go down the rabbit hole, I think it's good that we're going down there, because it offers us some other clues as to what may be going on. And of course, taking into effect the, quantum reality and what happens going into superstring theory. I'm not going to send anyone into a mental institute thinking about it, but in terms of like creation and of course energy, and of course this type of going into the finer structures of what's holding everything together, And so I think that's an area that's very much in need of exploration. I really do think, I wonder if, people laugh about demons. A lot of them do when we suggest UFOs. So I'm wondering if now there's a shift, that we're going back again. We seem to be going back all the time. Ideas change every 10 years. Science changes. It moves on every decade. But I wonder if there is some truth, not in the manner in which people believe this to be the case, but something behind all those myths. Something.
Yes. Yeah.
Belief, fairy tales. And this is almost like a reservoir of consciousness. And I think consciousness is another key element that it is being explored into the phenomena, and that perhaps we are opening gateways or portals to these other realms that maybe we have created on another level of reality that then comes into our field frequency of our reality from its reality. We don't know. So that is not, I think that the multi-million-dollar question is, what are they? Where do they come from? And why are they here? And why do they come in the way that they do? Normally, when it's quiet, when there's hardly any witnesses on a lot of occasions, there are rare occasions where UFOs are seen by hundreds of people. But these objects, this phenomena seems to elude our capture. And I think that's part of the reason, whether it's some kind of psychological connection there, that the phenomena changes us as individuals. That certainly is the case with a lot of people who've had Dogman, Sasquatch, UFOs, alien experiences. It's quite clear and transparent within that department. It's kind of funny, isn't it? I think about this as well, with the Dogman, especially with Bigfoot, how there are always things that are kind of recognizable. The Dogman is based on the wolf, the Sasquatch cavemen, or apes. There's always some kind of similarities, and yet they are made to be monstrous. They appear very defined. The big bad wolf, things like that. Not that they talk. I don't know if they do or not. I think it is interesting to note that they are recognizable to some degree to us. And also, I think because we as a society have been programmed and consciously restricted in our understanding of reality, now I think the system we serve is quite worried, because a lot of this is now coming out where we have been systematically, individually, that is, programmed, no, they don't exist and these don't exist. And now the big question is, well, they must, because there is evidence to suggest that the phenomena is real. And I think this is why, with regards to disclosure, and I call it the system, is having problems wondering how to address this to the public. And you're not going to tell me that for all these decades that those people at the top, whoever they are, and they are there, whichever departments they secrete themselves in, haven't been studying this phenomena a lot longer than they're making out. So we're being drip-fed this slight information that really means nothing, that we know already. And I think that there's going to be a lot of radical changes. And whether or not the phenomena is good or whether or not it's bad, we don't know. Because I think this is the issue, or the area that the system will have to address to the public at some point or other. Promoting fear is not good. No. No.
I've been having thoughts about this because I'm still writing my book, Encounters with Various Ghosts and Spirits. I'm actually at the tail end of it, and I'm sort of just thinking things through. And I've been looking at a lot of the spiritualist materialization, physical mediumship.
Yes.
And I started to wonder about maybe the connection, if there is a connection with flying saucers, UFOs, UAPs. And in a physical seance, so it is said, I've been to seances, but I've never seen ectoplasm or anything like that. So that's why I say so it's said, because I've never physically seen it myself. So the idea is that the spirit world would, when they're trying to manifest a physical body of a deceased person in the room, will take parts from each person, not just a medium, elements from them, and they'll take colour, say from flowers that might be in the room or from someone's coloured top or something, to form their material body and colour it in.
Yeah.
On a temporary basis, maybe for half an hour or whatever the energy can muster. And I'm wondering if these things aren't from outer space, far away, could they be like spirits coming into our physical reality, but taking elements from our own reality, build themselves up into some physical temporary form, like a ship, or an alien or something, and that's why they might resemble us a little bit, or they might have metals, things that look like metals, and then they're gone, that kind of thing.
I did, I mentioned this in the Digital Demon book. They could be the dead, as you well know as well. We have discussed this, haven't we? I remember those two dreams that I had, one after the other, and it was very symbolic, and I've never forgotten them, where I found myself in an open window, and it was dark, there was no glass in the window, and I would see a UFO, and I'd feel this overwhelming sense of awe. My goodness, I wanted to hold it. It's like I wanted a part of it, and it was coming closer to me, and it's got closer and closer. I ended up holding one of them, was a dirty bottle, and the next image that I had, the next vision, I'm sure it was a vision, almost telling me on a deeper level, the next one reenacted exactly the same, but it was like some dirty old lead piping. So my understanding is that, as you've said, perhaps when these crashed UFOs are discovered, that the technology eludes the people who are obviously have found it and tearing it to pieces to find out how it works, are eluded because it seems to have some kind of earthly composition but mixed with something else. And like The Thing, do you remember the movie The Thing? Yes. When the Thing actually used people to, and the only thing it rejected was like plates and plates or fillings or that type of thing, because it was pure within its biological nature. I have thought about that as well, as though the craft that comes in, as the energy or the force, the intelligence behind it starts to build up with the composition of earthly pieces. And that's why people are trying to find out, well, where's the technology behind it? And there's also a childlike quality to these encounters, almost like the disturbing childlike quality to like the aliens and of course their crafts. They seem to come across like memories or links within us, how we would see a topple, one of those bobble topple thing UFOs used to spin around and all
spinning top.
And I think myself personally know that that's quite disturbing in the way that it manifests itself into our reality. So I absolutely agree with you, because as you know, we're also into the other side. And as my point on that, I mean, in my book that was published, I think it was 2020, The Digital Demon, I mentioned even about crash saucers, the Roswell ship being a Trojan horse. I think myself and Jack Valet, his book Trinity came out in March. I think my book came out, mine came out in March. His came out just 2 months later. He referred to that ship as a gift. So we're thinking along the similar lines. But because it struck me as that was planted, it must have been, because there were all these others, which I mentioned in the book, that had crashed. But they had to look different, you see, so as not to raise eyebrows with the military. And isn't it funny how they were always crashed in areas just away from populated lands, but enough to be commandeered by the military forces quite comfortably. So it's quite, as Philip states, it's quite disturbing, isn't it? Yes, I think this, whatever this thing is, it is able to infiltrate us. Like the dogman, as I stated, the smells are in us. Wet dogs are in us. So something perhaps is pricing them out to give us this impression.
If you think of, say, apologists or whatever they're called, your David Attenboroughs and people like that, if they go to a tribe of apes in the jungle, gorillas or chimpanzees or something, they're not going to walk straight into the middle of them, because that's going to be a problem for everybody. So what they might do is film them from a distance, and the apes might be able to smell them or hear them or something like that. But sometimes they might want to actually leave something there just on the perimeter of their territory, if you like, to let the apes wander out and discover it, so they don't have to intrude too much upon. And then they observe them playing with this box or radio or camera or whatever it may be that they've left, to have a look at, to see how they figure it out. And it's almost like that with these potentially crash saucers just on the perimeter. We all scurry out to have a look like the apes and start tinkering with it and trying to work it out.
It reminds me of the Arthur C. Clarke's 2001.
Yeah.
When the monkeys, the apes are touching the slab.
The monolith.
And yes, very interesting point. Well said. And I think also that the other part, very quickly, is that the phenomena seems ancient. It seems old. It seems as though it's very interested in our human psychology. It seems to be interested in mythology. It seems to manifest itself into those images, stereotypical images that we as humans have created. And maybe the phenomena doesn't know how to present itself into our realm through our limited processing of data, or the way that we translate information through the brain via consciousness. And I think perhaps this is maybe another reason why many people are reporting different aliens. I mean, I know the Greys are the famous ones within ufology. Well, they're what's in vogue at the moment. Yeah. So, I think that this force, this phenomena, this intelligence knows how to connect with individuals, but we don't know ultimately to what end and where it's gearing us towards. I think that's the main problem, because it seems to elude us continuously and keep us at arm's length. It's not giving us anything. In fact, we're trying to salvage what we can from it, regardless of people saying that they have love and light encounters and that they're there to bring goodwill to men. Well, none of that has been seen. Well, at least we haven't seen it our end, especially in the way that we as a species are developing. In fact, we seem to be going downhill, don't we?
Yeah.
Tasters and tasters.
Yes. It's reading Operation Trojan Horse by
John Keel,
about the Fatima sightings of Portugal.
Oh, yes.
Around the turn of just the beginning of the First World War.
Yeah.
And they were interpreting that as like the religious side of things.
Yes.
Initially, they saw a 15-year-old boy. They thought he was an angel. And then about 4 months later, they started to see this being in light manifest.
Yes.
And she said, I am the Mother Mary or something like that. And when she announced that she was going to appear on a certain day, all the people came to see her.
Yes.
And they kept saying they could see the sun move. And apparently there was lots of movie film and photographs taken of this object they thought was the sun was moving as the clouds apart, because it just stopped raining. And none of these pictures showed up, but I actually found one on the internet where allegedly it's from that photograph. I mean, it could be doctored, I don't know, but it does appear to show a disc type of thing. And people, I think there was doctors there, they said that they thought that it looked rather like a silver disc. And so John Keel was the assumption is that they're trying to test the water by appearing, like you say, as different things within our society. Let's put on this Mother Mary rubber suit and see how we get on with this one,
Well, I mean, appearances can be deceptive, and I think that applies to a lot of us within humanity. And so at the end of the day, we have to really consider who's the bad guys. I mean, we take us as a species, and people would prefer half-truths and lies than the truth. We are not a nice species. And in evidence to what we're seeing, we are in readiness to destroy our own species in a relatively short space of time. And it's like history repeating itself again and again. The phenomenon, I think, is as old as the stars. And I think perhaps that in some way it's trying to work through certain individuals to change the way we think and feel. But at the same token, because it's on a different level, we can't catch it.
No, because it's promoting fear. A lot of it is fear. So this is what throws it all out, because we have got no idea what we're dealing with. I dare say the dogman that attacks those men, some people have been killed by them.
Yes, they have.
Just covered up. They've been killed, mauled.
Yeah.
Why? Why?
Don't know. It's very bizarre. That's the big question, isn't it, Ronnie? That's what every researcher is scrambling towards. And of course, I think it's wonderful that we have a lot of researchers within the world. And I know that they're all battling to find the holy grail of what this all is about.
Like somehow they're battling for pole position.
Yes, but I always say no one has exclusive rights to the phenomena. It belongs to all of us because we are also part of that phenomena. This is what I state as well. We're part of that.
Yeah.
So whichever way that you
the phenomenon would not be there if it wasn't for us observing it.
Exactly. That's correct. Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
We have seen things beyond imagination. This is what shoved us down the rabbit hole, as well as yourself. We've seen things that defy scientific knowledge. We're not trained.
Where science won't officially acknowledge.
That's right. And of course, you're not going to leave it. It's like a bug. Later on, yes, you wait till you're matured and hopefully a little bit wiser, you start looking into it. But my goodness, is it a snake pit? Because you've got so many people who will rebel against the hypothesis of demons, of the dead, of dimensionals, of planets. Some have them believe they're time travelers. I don't believe in that, but that's their opinion, of course. But we go on and on and on.
There's only one thing now left to ask you, and that's about a person that comes through a portal once a year with presents, gifts of wisdom, they say. But I know the Jehovah's Witnesses won't acknowledge him, but we all believe in him. So regarding Christmas, what do you have planned for Christmas? Have you got anything laid on special?
No, we're just going to have the family round for Christmas, which we normally do every Christmas. Obviously, other loved ones have passed over now, so we have our family round, which will be really nice. We're looking forward to that, very much indeed. Yeah. And I think it's nice for everyone because it's a time when you can reflect also over all that you've done, whether great or small, it doesn't matter, and then really reflect over time and just enjoy that period of just, letting yourself go for a few days.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, wishing you all from the Paranormal Peep Show a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to both of you.
And a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you. And a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year to you also, Neil, and to the Paranormal Peep Show as well.
And good luck for all your projects next year, and keep up the good work on Twin Souls Radio, because I always listen to it.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Neil.
All right. Cheerio.
Bye-bye. Goodbye, Neil. Welcome back. So here we are. We're talking to Ben Emlyn-Jones, Nic Sands, and Leigh Thatcher. So we're just having a little kind of Christmas catch-up, if you like, because we haven't spoken to some of our friends for a while. So, Nic, you was telling me in an email that you got this this rock that you want to try and get analysed. What's the story behind that?
Yeah, the first meteorite I came across was actually in Cumbria on a golf course, and it was like dark in nature, but it was like full of like holes, as if it had come through the atmosphere. It was only small. It was about the size of a tennis ball, or maybe smaller than a tennis ball. And I took it home with me. It was actually when I was either at college or at uni. And I kept it in a little plastic tub in my bedroom, and it just went missing. So
right.
Yeah.
You never got it tested to find out anything about it, or?
No, at the time, no. But since after the two UFO shoot downs that I witnessed years later, I was at a river in North Cumbria. And I had these like experiences with like cylinders,
right?
And they would land in fields and things, and people would come out of the cylinders and stuff. And the base covered it up and said it was just grain silos on the farm, but I totally knew different. But they're like SSP, and they've got to maintain the secrets, so they massively covered it up type thing. But this meteorite that I found at North Cumbria at the river, again, looking at all the geological sites and everything, it was unlike any rock anywhere near that area. And I'd studied geology, geography, and environmental science, so I knew all about the history of the place and everything. And this rock was completely unnatural for the environment that I found myself in.
And so, I presume you'd have to pay someone to test it and analyze it or something to confirm where it's come from, I presume.
Yeah, it's just a shame I didn't take it with me to college or university at the time. I
You
guess,
might have had someone there that could have taken a look at it, maybe.
Yeah, it's similar to what you see on the Blaze channel with the UFO hunters, those guys.
Yeah. I've seen plenty of meteorites come down, like just like a firework sort of zooming, and you don't hear a sound. You just see a load of sparkles for about 3 or 4 seconds, and then it's gone. And you're thinking, I wonder how far that away was. And my understanding is that some of these things are so tiny, and yet they kind of light up the night sky with their brightness sometimes. Have you ever found any meteorites, Ben, or anything?
I never found any. I mean, I know that there's some exist. I mean, there are a number that actually do reach the ground in a size that's large enough to be picked up and examined. And I think the polar ice caps are good places to look for them because they stand out very clearly on the ice. But they have certain properties, and a natural one will have certain properties that indicate it's not a normal rock. As I'm disappearing, funnily enough, I've not heard of one disappearing, except there was an incident in Russia where a piece of the Chelyabinsk meteorite, which of course was a large one, which caused a huge explosion when it struck the Earth's atmosphere, which actually broke some windows and things in the town of Chelyabinsk in Russia. It was in a museum, and there was a strange incident that was caught on the CCTV cameras overnight when everyone was gone. No one was anywhere near the object. That the lid of the display case opened. No, it shouldn't be possible. It's locked, and to get in there, you actually need to unlock it with a key and then physically lift up the display case. It's a glass panel. It was lifting on its own, which seems rather strange.
That sounds like something that's about to hatch out of it. It's like these science fiction.
Sounds like something from Marvel.
Yeah,
but it's like, but it's interesting that you had one that disappeared, Nick, and was someone trying to take this little piece away? I don't know. Maybe some people come down. Maybe somebody out there, one of the guys out there, decides it's easier to find meteors for themselves on the Earth, so they come down to Earth to look for meteorites themselves because they're easier to find than on other planets, and they pick them out of museums or they pick them out of people's houses or something like that. I don't know.
Maybe it's Pleiadians' keepsake.
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully we can now go over to Andy, who couldn't join us on our chat tonight, but I'm trying to catch up with him. Here is Andy Chaplin. Welcome back. How are you, Andy?
Yeah, pretty good, Neil. A fleeting visit. It's only going to be about 15 or 20 minutes because I'm rushing around doing all sorts at the moment.
So you've been busy with your tuned in events. You had an absolutely super busy October, I presume.
Yeah, I mean, Halloween was absolutely heaving. It was winding down slightly in November. December's kind of like hit and miss. Right now we've got snow everywhere. So a lot of people are going to be thinking, is it cancelled due to unforeseen circumstances? But no, so far as we're able to go, so long as the pubs are open, so long as the roads are gritted, they're going ahead. And so cross fingers, we've got a few events coming up.
Cool. So what about the World Cup? Because that sort of flummoxed you a little bit.
I didn't watch a single game.
Did I?
I can't be bothered with it. The whole woke thing, the whole kneeling thing, millionaires basically pushing a ball around up and down a pitch and getting paid, millions for doing that. And we never win. The Lionesses won, but the Lions can't seem to do it. And I think the biggest thing is the hypocrisy. I hate the hypocrisy. So June, you get all these wonderful little corporations with the little rainbow flags and LGBTQ, and we support gay people. Qatar comes along, not a single rainbow in a place where they need it. So I'm going to be slightly controversial. I will say I'm not anti-LGBTQ. I go to Brighton quite a lot. I love Brighton. I'm very open. I go to kind of quite alternative clubs. I meet a lot of alternative people. It's not that I don't like, it's the hypocrisy. So June, you get all of these corporations that have all their little rainbow logos. Now, we don't really, I mean, can you think, Neil, of anything that gay people can't do that straight people can do, or trans people or bi people or whatever?
Well, I'd say make babies, but even that seems people now, doesn't it? Because you can order them.
Because I mean, in the 1950s, I mean, this was an absolute outrage. In the 1950s, the guy who basically saved us from actual Nazis, not pretend Nazis that left kind of bang on about, but actual Nazis. The guy that saved us really was Alan Turing. They reckon that he shortened the war for, I don't know, possibly saving millions of lives. That was obviously in the 1940s. They cracked the Enigma code. It wasn't just Turing, it was like a group of them. By the way, it's a fascinating place to go to, Bletchley Park.
My dad always encouraged me to go there. He was a fan of that place.
Do so.
And went with my brothers, and I was just saying, can't be asked. But...
No, do. It's, I love it, the whole ambience of it, everything. But anyway, he was gay, which is fine. And in the 1950s, he was prosecuted for being gay. And I think they did something like chemical castration or something. Just I read it. I just thought, what the hell is going on with that? But they prosecuted him, and I think he might have done jail time as well. He became so depressed, he basically ended up killing himself. Okay, we have progressed a long way since then. We are no longer in the 1950s. Things have changed. Gay people and trans people and bi people, etc., can have relationships. They can kiss openly. They can have sex with each other. They can marry each other. I don't think it's. I'm not sure about the religious situation, whether the churches do marriages, but certainly in a civil partnership they can have. So there's really not a lot that LGBT people can't do in this country and in the West. So there's not a huge amount of reason, in my view, why companies would need a rainbow in this particular country. I do love a party, but I don't know. Do we really need a rainbow? It's you know, that's maybe up for contention. But a place where they do need a rainbow is places in the Middle East, where apparently, and I've looked this up, in Qatar, the penalty for a Muslim who is gay, who engages in gay activity, is death, stoning to death. And for non-Muslim people, it's a fine or it's a jail time, usually jail time. This is the situation in Qatar. And in almost pretty much all Middle Eastern countries, it's either death or hanging or stoning. That's places where they do need the rainbow, not a single rainbow on any of the corporations. So when it comes back round to June, and they start saying we support LGBTQ, I want people to annihilate them on social media for why they did display the rainbow where it's needed in Qatar. So that's my feeling.
Yeah, I understood it's a slightly awkward thing, but as I say, I've not really had any interest in the football thing, so I haven't watched a single match, so I didn't really know the details of all these things. I heard snippets and this, that, and the other.
There's also some rather sinister things going on with the Qatar thing. I don't know if you come across this. So first of all, there's this thing about slave labor. People, there's a lot of people on slave wages who built the Qatar stadium who died. So there's that issue. There's other issues that are springing up. The Telegraph brought this up, whereby there's FIFA apps, where there's suspicion that Qatari authorities are actually spying on English fans and other fans in Qatar for who knows what reason. But it's all it's a little bit sinister. It's a little bit Big Brother and New World Order-ish. So that's another reason why screw Qatar and screw the World Cup, as far as I'm concerned.
I've actually been there, would you believe?
Have you? Yeah.
Yeah, but that was literally passing through the airport. You know, like we landed at Qatar about an hour and a half while we wait for our next flight to go to India. And so we just had to kill time in the airport. So I never actually went around the place. But you could see palm trees and deserts out the window and stuff like that. And the interesting thing is that, you know, you see a guy that's like a chic kind of guy, I suppose, you know, whatever, Arab bloke, walking along. And he's got about 10 women behind him, which you presume must be his wives, you know. Yeah. And they're all kind of done up like this, you know, with burqas or whatever they called it, face things and stuff. And they're all pointing at my girlfriend because she's blonde. And, you know, it's like a real thing. If you're blonde, it's like, whoa, what's going on there? They sort of treat you as if you're sort of descended from heaven or something. It's really peculiar. And that even got worse when we went to India. We kept getting followed by people and saying, can we have our pictures taken?
That's strange. Well, I suppose if they don't come across blonde people on a regular basis.
Yeah, that's right. I did speak to an Indian guy that I worked with at the time. I said, what is it, you know, with Indians and people in the Middle East, you know, like following blonde people? And they said, it's because they it's like you say, it's this thing. They don't see people with blonde hair that much. And to them, it's like they treat you like a kind of goddess and a special person, you know, and it's like, I mean, if if I was there by myself, I probably wouldn't have been followed so much. Maybe, I don't know. But my girlfriend was certainly the centre of attention. With the blonde hair, they wanted to be photographed with her, and they said, "Hold my child," and then they take a photo. It really was bizarre.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know about the guitar thing with the Middle East though, with the football. That's
it was such a bizarre choice, wasn't it? It's such a bizarre.
Yeah. So how did that affect you? Because I understood the pubs were then suddenly. I mean, was it all a short notice thing? This football thing.
Yeah. Well, what happened is that I mean I can't remember when Qatar was actually selected. It was quite some time ago. It might have been a year ago or so. It was quite controversy as to why it was selected. There was allegations of backhanders and kind of dodgy dealings and all that kind of thing. And I think there was a comedian, I don't know if you saw it, the comedian went up to one of the FIFA managers or the FIFA CEO with a load of money and just started doing, and kind of I think he said something like, can't wait for the FIFA World Cup, the next one, to be held in North Korea. So that's funny. But how it affected us, there were set dates, so we kind of tried to go around the set dates, but I think they might have either changed or I might have just kind of double booked it without realising it. So there's a few events we had to kind of cancel and then relocate them to different dates. But it's been a bit of an arseache. But the whole kneeling thing and the woke thing. I mean, the funniest thing, I didn't actually see it, but I heard England played Senegal at one point. And Senegal is obviously an African country with mostly black players. And so the English players were all kind of kneeling down, as this whole kind of BLM woke kind of George Floyd thing. And the Senegal players were kind of standing there looking at them wondering what the hell's going on.
The irony. Yeah. The irony. Oh my God. And what about the psychic front? Because obviously you're doing lots of demonstrations and readings. Anything interesting come out of any of those things?
Don't know about interesting. Every event is kind of unusual and has its own quirks. We used to do just psychic one-to-ones, and that was about 8-9 years we've been doing just one-to-ones. And then the beginning of the year, I just thought, why don't we just bolt on kind of group demos as well? So that's what I've been doing, and it's been really successful, and it really kind of adds something to an evening. So when somebody goes to an event for one-to-one reading, it used to be the case that that's it, and it's just kind of I've had my reading now, what now? But now they can have their reading and then they can wait for a group demo thing. And this is where we get some of our readers to do a little short segment of readings, and we've got somebody who does tarot readings, got somebody who does stick readings, believe it or not. You kind of throw the sticks.
Wow.
Almost like bone reading. And we have got a reader as well.
Wow.
So, if anyone wants to join our little group on Facebook, Tuned In Events, Tuned with the D, Tuned In Events, and we've got a page and a group. And, everything that we do is up there.
Cool. And so have you got any special Christmas parties lined up for this Tuned In event?
Christmas parties, not really. At the moment, we're kind of snowed in. I haven't really thought about that, but I think that the closest thing we come to a party is a very alternative club called Club Antichrist, which people might think is a kind of satanic devil worshipping club, but it's really not. It's just very alternative and very kind of out there. We have a whale of a time. I like Halloween because we can ramp it up. We can ramp up the ham factor. We can proper go full on, gothic and steampunk and all that kind of thing. Club Antichrist allows us to do that. So that's on the Friday, the 20th of January in London, Club 5 Vauxhall. Tickets for that are £30, and that's not us charging. That's the club itself. And that can be found on clubantichrist.com or just on their Facebook page. And it's quite an interesting eclectic mix of people, and we have a great time there.
Cool. And on the UFO front, do you think there'll be disclosure next year, or any more interesting reports from the UAP department?
I don't think so. I can't see it happening. We've been told this for years, haven't we? Oh, it's coming, disclosure. They've been saying that for years. I think so far as the deep state goes, no, I don't think they're going to. Although there have been some little inklings of kind of US Navy and CIA people kind of quietly saying, oh, by the way, this does exist. But that kind of appears as a news thing and then it disappears again. It's weird, isn't it?
I think it's almost as if they're acknowledging it, but they just can't explain it. It appears to be craft or something. When you actually go to the source of where they're from, they're not really sure. That they used to do they're from outer space thing, and now there's a lot of talk about, well, maybe they're from here, but a sort of an alternative Earth, and it just goes down a rabbit hole. And I think the ordinary person goes, what? It's too Star Trek for them.
Yeah.
And So I think just by avoiding those issues and just saying, oh, we're looking into it, just carry on with your lives and your wars like that, you know. I mean, I can't imagine people, for instance, Boris Johnson or Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss or anyone suddenly becoming UFO kind of clued up. Can you imagine sort of putting Boris Johnson at one side? They might do that to a US president, saying, okay, we're going to debrief you on the UFO situation. You know? And it goes,
I've seen little people, but I didn't think UFOs or aliens on it. Yeah.
I told them to tidy up after their party.
If you don't, then he would just forget in 10 minutes.
Yeah. It's just ridiculous. Now, getting back to the psychic thing, maybe you might have some insights in this, doing mediumship yourself. I did a little mini kind of demo about a week and a half ago at the Weymouth Spiritualist Centre here.
Okay.
And it was hard at first, pulling teeth, but eventually it warmed up. It really kind of, I started spinning with stuff. And I felt like I was drawn to the back. And I started talking to this woman, and I started getting names. And I know that it's working for me when I start getting names come through. It's not that I sort of, could they be? No, I start getting names. Do you know Pete? And I felt I should say Pete rather than Peter. And she goes, yes. And I felt it was brother. Yes, it's your brother. And then I said something about painting and decorating. She goes, no. And then I suddenly felt children, and he's talking about his boys or boy. And I said, okay, does he have a son? And she goes, yeah. I said, is there, and she goes, he's got a few sons. But I said, is there someone that's there that's like connected to painting and decorating? She goes, oh yeah, that's right. He does do painting and decorating. And I suddenly felt myself having to talk. And this is really, really weird, because I remember when we had Jane Hartswell on back in the summer with her brother, and she said that she has this philosophy of talking to her students where she says, say it and sod it. I don't know if you remember her saying that.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I'll say it and sod it. I said, I feel that this guy is involved in stolen cars. And I thought it was a bit awkward saying that to someone in the public. But she goes, yeah, you're right. He is involved in stolen cars. I'm thinking, oh my God.
Yeah.
But then I started getting this idea of boats, great big ferry boats or something. And I started to see destinations in my head like a triangle, a point there, a point there, and a point there. And I said, well, I'm seeing both of you, and I'm seeing a triangle. Also gave her Norway. I said, I see Norway with you. Can you take Norway? She goes, yes, I can take Norway. So she was connected with Norway in some way. Then I started seeing this boat and this triangle. And I said, well, I'm seeing this like destination, 3 points of a destination with boats. So I said, it reminds me, I said, of that TV show that was about boats, and they went to 3 destinations in the 80s. And I said, I can't remember what it's called, but, Kate O'Mara, the actress, was in it. And she said, I was friends with Kate O'Mara in my village. And I'm thinking, whoa, that is spooky. So I was thinking, I was sort of like giving it a post-analysis. The only thing I can ever remember Kate O'Mara in, really, because I never, was this program called Triangle, where she played this lady on a ferry boat service that had 3 destinations to go for.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing I know her from, really. Afterwards, I thought, oh, yeah, she was in Doctor Who for a little bit, but I forgot all about that. So I'm thinking, was Kate O'Mara, the actress, because she passed away in 2014, was she trying to come through me, do you think? I mean, she didn't announce, I didn't see her, I didn't hear her voice, or didn't get a name. I suddenly saw this triangle.
Yeah. And
the show was called Triangle that she was in.
Yeah.
About ferry boats. What do you think? Do you think she might have been trying to come through?
Quite possibly. I mean, spirit do work in a multitude of different ways. So sometimes they present themselves and you see exactly what they look like. And sometimes they will give symbolism, or they'll give things connected to them. It depends how they, and I don't know why it is that they work some ways in, for some spirit and other ways for other spirit. I don't know why that is, but that I do know that they chop and change the way that they work. So for instance, with myself, kind of in the early years, they would focus on my clairvoyance, so it would be visual stuff, and then it will kind of shift and it will be very kind of clairaudient, and it would be kind of like hearing or kind of like words, but then it will be kind of cognizance, which is kind of knowing stuff. So I think what they're doing is it's kind of like a training thing. They're showing you all these different ways of working, so that you can kind of like launch yourself out and work the way that you want to work.
Yes, and get a complete package. Now I wondered, because she had an extensive career which I knew nothing about, I was thinking about it all this week. She was perhaps, if it was her communicating through me, trying to get a message, she was picking something that I would maybe suggest to know of, because I didn't know much about her career. The only thing I knew that she did this triangle show. And I know that I think she might have been briefly in the Two Ronnies doing sketches and things like that from time to time. But during the 80s, I used to see her on this show called Triangle. And that's the only thing I could think that they made me aware through that thing of ferry boats and triangles, that I would start talking about Kate O'Mara. I was like, oh, it reminds me of Kate O'Mara. And then this lady, she says, well, in fact, I used to know her. She was in the same village as me. She was a lovely lady, blah, blah, blah. So I'm thinking, Jesus, was, that's interesting. That coincidence, if you like, was that. And I'm thinking, I think I possibly might have gone on. Had I either strengthened that link or something, I might have started getting information from her. Maybe even if the lady had said nothing about Kate O'Mara, I might have started getting more information through, saying, oh, can you take the name Kate or something like that, Yeah. But yeah, very interesting, very interesting. And again, I was getting names, like words that I knew. I suddenly knew facts without thinking. I didn't even see a symbol for that fact. I just knew to say it. It's really strange, And someone told me years ago in a spiritualist church, they just came up to me, this little old lady, she goes, you've got blah, blah, blah. And I forget the phrase she used. And I said, what's that? And she says, that's an ability to speak to someone and you know it to be a fact. So for instance, in clairvoyance, I'll say something and I'll absolutely know it 100% true. Ron say, can you take this? I'll know it.
Yeah.
And I have experienced that kind of stuff where I remember years ago doing a reading with someone I didn't know. And I suddenly said, you know a policeman, don't you? He's someone that's personally known to you as a friend. And she goes, yeah, my dad is a part-time police constable sort of. And I sort of said it, you know it, like stating a fact, absolutely super confident,
Yeah.
It's weird sort of thing. So yeah, hopefully I'll get more time to practice as next year goes on and get a lot better at it. But I don't think I'm up there with your game doing it every other evening, that kind of thing. I can't probably muster that energy. I'll have to do a lot of practicing.
It's with psychic readings, I find it either drains you or it invigorates you. Like some people kind of attend an event like that and they'll kind of like, they'll drain your energy because they want so much. But other people, they kind of sit there and they give energy. And that's when you kind of buzz with it. So
yeah.
Really.
People are enthusiastic, and that sort of gives out the energy for it, especially when they're in a sort of like a social situation. It's all a bit more buzzy and excited rather than a sort of dreary spiritualist chat.
Each audience and each group is very different. Whether it's a spiritualist church, or whether it's like a pub environment, it's very different. Sometimes you'll have really kind of open, kind of optimistic, kind of like a real buzz, a real vibe, and comedians have found this as well on the comedy circuit. And other times you'll have the kind of what I call the crossed arms brigade, and they'll just sit there and they'll look at you and they'll be like, don't know, and that's just infuriating. You feel like, what the hell am I doing here?
Yeah.
Circuits like that as well. The comedy circuit, sometimes you can have a buzzing night. I don't do comedy myself, but from what I've heard of comedians, they'll have a buzzing night, or other times they'll have a dead audience, or even worse, a violent kind of raucous kind of audience where they're throwing bottles. That's probably more Glasgow in the 80s, but
yeah, absolutely. I can see why working men's clubs were tough breaking ground for comedians in the 80s.
Hate drunks. We hate drunks. I'm sure comedians hate drunks as well, but it's rare. But on our psychic nights, we have had incidents of drunk people, and they're just so boring. They're just so boring. Oh, go on, right, what's me lottery numbers? Oh, just fuck off. You know that?
Yeah. I remember when I ran our Wickham Paranormal group, meet-up group, and people from the next bar who were not interested would come through the door pissed and be going, whoa, like that, It's
they don't realise how boring they are. They don't. They think they're being the most original. They think "What's me lottery numbers, mate?" is the most original thing that anyone could possibly say. And after 20 years of doing this, I could tell you that it's just the most. Can you imagine? That episode of what was it? Richard Wilson, but it wasn't actually in keeping up appearances. It was another one, but
One foot in the
Father Ted. I know where this is. It's
right.
Father Ted. Richard Wilson is in Father Ted, and Father Ted is saying to Dougal, "Oh, you know what I think Richard would really love? He'd really love somebody to go up to him and say, 'I don't believe it.'" Ah, go on then, Ted. Good. I really love that. I bet nobody's ever said that to him. Oh, go on then. Hey, Richard, I don't believe it. Get out of my face. Yeah, it's like we get the equivalent of somebody going up to Richard Wilson saying, "I don't believe it," but we get that in the paranormal world. It must be lottery numbers. Oh, the other one is, "Oh, bet you didn't see that coming." Right. Yeah. And the thing is, what really annoys me about that one is that there's no context. So they'll just say, you walk in a pub, for instance, and they know that you're the psychic because you've got like all the gear and stuff, and they'll be like, "We didn't see that coming," and I'm just like, didn't see what's coming. There's not even any context. You know, what is it that if I've tripped up, okay, that would make sense. Or if I'd spilt my beer, you know, that would make sense. But just saying to somebody, "You didn't see that coming," what is it that I didn't see coming? Oh, it just infuriates me. It's like a therapy session now. But most people are wonderful and lovely.
Yeah, that's true. So what do you plan for Christmas then?
Drink, food, money, chocolate, and snow.
Oh, cool. I think that's what most people want, actually. Yeah. And New Year's resolutions?
New resolutions, the same as last year, not to make any more New Year's resolutions.
Okay. Well, I think that's probably
which is a kind of like a paradox, because that is a resolution.
Yeah. Yeah.
Next time continuum there.
Psychic's paradox. Yeah. Right. Cool. Well, thanks for joining us, and hopefully we'll catch you in January.
Yes, indeed.
We're trying to get a few guests back, so I'm working on that at the moment. So we'll just take this opportunity. You can say anything to anybody. Wish them all a Merry Christmas.
I would say Happy Christmas. I hope Joe Biden has to step down. I hope Anthony Fauci ends up in jail, because in my point of view, this is my personal point of view and not the view of the network or any of its other hosts. In my personal view, Anthony Fauci is an absolute traitor to humanity. Him and Klaus Schwab both belong in jail, maybe Bill Gates as well. And the Elon Musk show is something quite enjoyable. I don't fully trust Elon Musk, but it's quite a pantomime we're seeing with what's going on with that. So my biggest Christmas present, I think, would be the New World Order Illuminati darkness in jail for 2023.
They're gonna have to build quite a few jails through.
So yeah.
Well, I wish everybody a very happy Christmas, peace and goodwill to everybody, and I hope this effing war in the Ukraine stops and people can get on with their lives. It's crazy. And what really annoys me is that the people who create the wars are the ones that are just sitting behind desks with, you know, twiddling their thumbs, saying what they want, and they're never getting hurt or whatever. And it's all the innocent people that are forced to fight for their arguments, and it's always been the same with wars.
Oh, this is another thing that annoys me. So we're told huge energy cost prices because of the war in Ukraine. Do you know the percentage of Ukrainian gas that we get, or sorry, Russian gas and Ukrainian gas that we get in the UK?
Is it not much at all, like 10%?
3%.
3%.
3%. We have got massive energy costs in this country, the United Kingdom, because of 3% of Russian gas not getting to us. In Europe, you can understand it's about 35-40%. But we've got the North Sea oil, we've got Norway, and we've got the United States. So, and anyone can look this up, welcome to look it up. It's about 3% of our energy is coming from Russia and Ukraine. So why have we got the huge hike? And the answer is pure, unadulterated greed from the corporations. This is a massive transfer of wealth, and people should be absolutely up in arms. We need to start boycotting petrol station and gas companies and just saying, right, we're not going to go there for a week until they kind of put the prices down, because there isn't an energy crisis, there's a money crisis. We are being robbed blind, basically.
It's sort of funny. It comes after a pandemic, and we kind of predicted that was what sort of happened.
Yeah.
Conspiracy theory, right again. Yeah.
What's the difference between a conspiracy theory and established fact? About 6 months.
Well, a conspiracy theorist also has a healthy heart. It's not enlarged.
Yeah. I wish we were wrong, Neil. I wish we were wrong, but the past year or so, it's tick, 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 tick for all of the tinfoil hat things. We could go on about the Jibby Jibs, but we don't want to get booted off. But that's a shit show in itself. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's just annihilated. Anyone who believes the official narrative is an idiot, in my opinion.
Yeah, there was a great movie, and I think I said this to you anyway, but watch, for anybody that's interested in ouchie fouchies and taking them, the effects of them and things like that. There was a movie produced, came out about a month and a half to 2 months ago now, and it was on YouTube for a while. I think it's probably been taken off, so they'll have to find it on other platforms. But it was called Safe and Effective Second Opinion.
Yeah.
And if you think that all the Jibbity Jibs are super safe, then watch that.
Yeah. And even the mainstream media now, are covering what an absolute shit show it is. The people dying, heart attacks. I mean, God, there's so many reports I'm coming across of like fit, healthy people either dropping dead or heart attacks. Rod Stewart, bless his little heart, Rod Stewart did a massive rant at one of his gigs about anti-vaxxers and how they're killing people, they're hurting people. Rod Stewart's son is in hospital right now with a heart condition.
Whoa.
Yeah. He's not dead, but he collapsed with a heart condition. So I wonder what was we need an apology from people like that. We need an apology from people who try to demonize us as the worst thing on earth, and then when it actually affects them, they need to say, actually, is it safe and effective?
Absolutely. Well, hopefully, people make up their own mind.
Yeah.
I know we had this controversial chat before in the summer, and people said we shouldn't be getting so political, but unfortunately, these politics affect all our lives.
Yeah.
So.
It's right. I would like to be in a situation where we could just sit back and listen to music and work with spirit and kind of like be left alone. But the problem is, we can leave politics alone, but politics doesn't leave us alone. Politics invades us, like that Sigourney Weaver thing where Sigourney's kind of there and like the aliens going like that, and that's what it's doing for us.
But unfortunately, these things are making us ghosts too soon, so it's still paranormal. It's making us ghosts too quicker.
Yeah.
Right, we'll say cheerio to Andy, and we're carrying on with the Paranormal Peep Show, and wishing Andy a happy Christmas and a wonderful, safe New Year.
Thank you very much, Neil. Take care.
Cheerio. Well, thanks for joining us, everybody. Ben, Nick, and Leigh. It's gone really quickly. Any plans for next year, Ben, before we leave you?
Well, I'm speaking at the Truth Seekers Northeast group on January the 21st, I believe. And I'm also booked to speak at the Encounters Conference, which is a brand new one in Hampshire. That's in April sometime. And then again, of course, our friends, the Dorset Earth Mysteries groups, are also hosting me in the late summer. I think it's in August sometime. So I'm really looking forward to these events, and I'm looking forward to going to other things as well. So I'll be touring, and I'll be doing more reportages and more shows. That's my plan.
So we can find out. You'll obviously be putting these on your own YouTube channel, Ben the JR.
Yeah, Ben the JR Porter, hotmail.com. Ben the JR Porter, which is my YouTube channel. Hapanwo TV, Hospital Porters Against the New World Order. I've also got this book here, Roswell Rising, a novel of disclosure. I think if based on the things that we've talked about this evening, I think if listeners and viewers have enjoyed this particular show, I think you'll enjoy this book, because it's very much along the same lines. So I'd seriously consider getting a copy of this.
And how can they get a copy of that, Ben?
It's £10 all good bookshops now.
Or Amazon, maybe? Or...
Yeah, online. You can buy it on all online platforms as well. It hasn't been banned yet, so fingers crossed it won't be.
And you've also got your podcast, your show.
Yes, I have the Panmo Radio. That's HPANWO, which stands for Hospital Porters Against the New World Order. I've got the Panmo Show, Third Rail Show, Gas Banner, there's the Cry Freedom Show. It's a whole station on there, yeah.
Yeah. You're appearing on everything, aren't you? Wow.
It feels like that way, yeah.
Cool.
I'm always happiest doing that.
And what are you doing for Christmas?
Going to spend it with my family, my daughter, my brother, my dad, and I might do if I get drunk enough, I'll do a live stream.
Excellent. Oh, plenty of streams when I drink too much. So Nick, what's your plans for next year?
Well, the severe weather's knocked everything on the head with the industrial action. So I'm going to be like Abby Barnes and batten down the hatches till about April, I think.
Right, you're going to hibernation, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess you can look after your meteorites, sort of sit on them, make sure no one gets them.
I'll have to figure out how to pour something on to dissolve them to make up something to survive. Maybe the way things are going.
Well, what are you gonna do for Christmas? Are you meeting up with family or anything? Or
no, it's going to have to wait until the weather changes and the industrial action settles down. As there's no way I'm risking it with the current climate. And
yeah, you could find yourself going somewhere, but you may not be able to get back. That's the problem, isn't
it?
Yeah. So, Leigh, coming to you, are you going to carry on doing more remote viewing, or are you going to try and expand it into different areas? Maybe.
I'm going to. I'm still doing it as a solo sort of project, so I do it on my own every so often. I will be getting the group back together again. So I've been in touch with a few of them, and I might do an online, a live sort of version, if you like. Try and get people online.
Excellent. So if people are interested to try and do this experiment, can they contact you?
If they can contact me via Facebook, I suppose.
Okay.
Leigh Thatcher, Leigh. I'll if you want to contact them, you can join the group either physically or remotely.
Yeah. So, what are you planning for Christmas? Anything good?
Christmas, we're going to Hungary.
Hungary? Wow.
Yeah. Well, we're going Boxing Day. So
Boxing Day. Oh, is that when the cheap flight starts, or the cheap package?
I don't know about cheap, but
you could go remotely if it gets too expensive. Check out the hotel before you get there.
The hotel was a bit weird, but that's another.
I can imagine that gets really cold. I understand that these places get really, really cold in Europe around the winter months, and yet they get extremely hot in the summer.
That's why we're going to Hungary, because we went there a few years ago at Christmas. Christmas in England isn't quite Christmassy, I don't think. So,
excellent. Well, have a great time, and good luck for next year. And we'll catch up with you the next year, and we'll talk some more about remote viewing in a future show next year.
So, what? Just quickly, what are you doing?
What am I doing? I will be working over Christmas, actually. Unfortunately, it's just the nature of my job in broadcasting. Broadcasting does not take a day off, in the sense of it's always there, and so I've been rostered in to do work over the Christmas period. I think the first day I get off will be Boxing Day, so that's when I'll start to chill out a little bit. And in January, I will be taking some time off, actually. My daughter will be joining me, coming down from the Orkney Islands, and so I'll be spending some time with her. So yeah, my Christmas is kind of a bit skewed this year, but maybe next year, I can maybe arrange something a bit better. Maybe I'll come out to Hungary or something like that. That'd be nice to get away. I've never actually been. I think the only time I've been away for Christmas was in 1987, where I flew to America, and that was a very snowy Christmas. That was quite interesting. The snow is very different out there. It's very kind of dry and powdery. It feels very different from the UK snow. I don't know where they buy theirs from, but
manufactured.
Manufactured, yeah.
Japan get a lot of snow as well, so
yeah, they get some really cold areas as well, interestingly enough. And again, it's one of those places that gets really hot in the summer and very, very cold in the winter. Never been there, but funny enough, my daughter's absolutely fascinated with Japan. She's got this strange fascination with Japan. Everything Japanese. She wants to go there. She wants to learn the language and everything. It's really, don't know where she gets it from. I don't know why Japan of all places, but there we go. Right, everybody. So I want to say thank you very much for joining us for this Christmas special on the Paranormal Peep Show on the Paranormal UK Radio Network. And we'll hope that you all have a great Christmas too, and wishing you a wonderful New Year. Thanks for joining us. Good night.